Welcome to episode 15 of Military Veterans Podcast, where we talk to veterans to learn about their stories and experiences. And today, we're joined by Seth Macy. Hey, Seth.
Hello. Hi. Good morning, or afternoon, rather.
Yeah, because you're in America, right?
I am the United States of America. I'm in New England, not the old one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm still in the old. Which one's better? Probably this one.
I can't say. I've never been to the UK, unfortunately. So.
You've not? Okay.
No.
Okay. Well,
it's on my list. It's on my list.
It's on your list. When this pandemic's over, you've got to come over because it's really good.
I want to.
Good. Well, Seth, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
We've had a little bit of a chat before we've hit record, and we've never crossed paths before, have we?
We have not crossed paths before, that we know of, at least.
That we know of, yeah. But yeah, really exciting that I've got you on the show, and I'm really excited to hear about your time in the military. So as previous episodes, we do have 4 questions to get going as a summary about what we're going to go into. And for yourself, Seth, I will do one at a time.
Sure.
And so you can do like a bullet point answer, and then we'll dive into the meat of it after that. How does that sound?
Sounds lovely. Sounds easy for me to keep track of.
Brilliant stuff. So the first question is, when did you join?
I joined in March of 1998, so 1,000 years ago, a whole millennia ago.
That is a while back, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's every day it gets a little further back. It's fine, whatever. It's time.
The next question is, what service? Well, let me say that again. What service and branch did you join?
I was a United States Air Force. I was a civil engineering electrician, electrical systems specialist, which is a 3 Echo 051.
That's a mouthful if you have to say it all together.
Yeah, I would just be like, I'm an electrician. Where's the light that doesn't work? Okay, we'll go fix it.
Brilliant stuff. The next question is, how long did you serve for?
I signed up for a 4-year enlistment, and I served 4.5 years because of stop loss.
Okay.
Which I don't know if you have in the UK, but
I'm not aware of it. So maybe we'll cover that later, and you can educate me. And the last thing is, what rank did you get to?
Well, I had selected for E5, which is staff sergeant, but I separated before my pin-on date. So I was an E4, which is a senior airman.
Senior airman. Wonderful stuff. Well, let's get going, and let's start at the very beginning. Seth,
okay.
Where was you born, and where did you grow up?
I was born about 5 minutes that way, actually, which is sad when you say it out loud, and I'm realizing it now. But there's a hospital down the street. That's where I was born. But I lived, like you can tell, I'm pointing. There's an island over there that I lived on. That's where I used to live. It's called North Haven, Maine. And I lived there from the time I was born till I was 4. Then we moved to Bangor, Maine, home of Stephen King. So my father could attend Bangor Theological Seminary, which is no longer there. From Bangor, we moved to East Machias, Maine, which is a little closer to you because it's down East Maine. It's almost Canada. And then when I was in 9th grade, we moved back to the island. Lived there until I was graduated, fumbled around a bit, joined the Air Force, met my wife. We came back to Maine. Now here I am.
And now here you are.
Not in my hometown anymore. I was able to escape the gravitational pull of my hometown, but it took a long time and a lot of effort. But I've done it. I've finally done it.
Brilliant. Well, I think that's all the podcast done now. We can go home now.
All right. It's the history of where I lived.
So it sounded like you jumped around a little bit as a kid, but what was your time at school like? Was it fun? Was it enjoyable? Did you do any sports?
Oh, I didn't like school at all. It's very, I don't appreciate structured learning, which is ironic that I would just go on to join the military. But no, I didn't like school. I played baseball. Baseball was my favorite sport. I couldn't wait till the spring and get a new baseball glove and wrap it up to break it in, slather it in baby oil, and wait for Little League season to start. I was terrible at baseball. Really? As much as I loved it, I was always on the worst team in the league. I was the best player on the worst team, which is not what you want to be. You want to be the worst player on the best team. So, unfortunately, that's
baseball is pretty big in the States, and it's not so much here in the UK. So, is it one of those sports that every kid would like be made to give it a go, like we do over here with rugby?
Oh, no. This was, and I don't see it as much now, but where I lived at the time when I was in, little league age, it was just it's just very popular thing among all the kids, and every kid wanted to be in little league. There was no like forcing it. If anything, Maine, which doesn't have any famous players, but basketball is actually really, that's another sport that I never even made a team, but I really wanted to be good at basketball. And then and then it's not fair because I grew up to be very tall, and now everyone says, "Oh, do you play basketball?" And I say, "No, I'm just wretched, just the worst basketball player." But that was another one that I really wanted to play.
So you weren't tall as a youngster.
I was a little fella until I was 5 foot tall when I started ninth grade. And then when I started 10th grade, I was 6 foot tall. And then, now I'm 6'2". I don't have the metric. I'm sorry.
That's fine. We work in 6 foot.
Oh, right.
Stuff,
yes,
so,
of course.
Yeah. I mean, I'm 6'2", nearly 6'3",
okay,
depending on which scale I stand on or whatever. And so you mentioned about joining the Air Force.
Yep.
Was there anything that enticed you to do that? Did you have kind of family connections, or was it something that you saw on TV and thought you'd give it a go?
I don't remember what my motivation to specifically join the Air Force was, other than, it might have been I just didn't want to join any of the other branches. The Marines, my friend was a Marine, and it sounded horrible. My friend Casey was in the Army. He was actually 82nd Airborne, and that sounded just like the worst. Even though I grew up on the coast of Maine on an island, I wasn't a fan of boats, so I wasn't about to join the Navy. And so I settled on the Air Force. And it actually turns out that my family, my aunt was in the Air Force. Her husband was in the Air Force. And my great uncle, Carrie, was an Air Force Chief Master Sergeant, which is the highest rank you can get in the U.S. Air Force. But I didn't know this at the time. I was kind of just like, if I want to join the military, I'm going to join the branch that I don't dislike. That's kind of what it came down to.
And so did you leave school knowing you wanted to join the military, or did you do like a civilian job before you joined?
No, I went straight out of high school. I went to college, and I went to college because I didn't know like what else you're supposed to do after you get out of high school. So I was really ill prepared for college. And like I mentioned before, I hated structured learning. So I just completely wasted my time. I failed absolutely spectacularly, and went back again to try it over again. And I got into a really bad car accident that kind of threw me out of school for a while. And then I didn't do much of anything for, I don't know, a year and a half. And then I just decided it would be something, a good way to motivate me would be if somebody was forcing me to motivate me. And so I signed up by not really knowing what to expect, sort of figuring I wouldn't know anybody like me. I was sort of resigned myself to, I've got 4 years of not, being with people that were like me. And it turned out that was completely false. Some of my greatest friends I still keep in touch with. I met in the Air Force. So
that's cool. And so when you join, do they give you like a list of things you can do in the Air Force? Because in the UK, you go and do, in fact, I don't know what it is for the Royal Air Force, but for the Army, you go and you do a few tests and they say, hey, you can do this job, this job, this job.
Yes, we have the ASVAB, which is the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery Test. And you take that test and it tells you, it just gives you all your strengths, all your aptitudes. So there's one section where you have to match codes and you have a minute to do it. And that was my favorite. I probably should have leaned into that because I was like, yeah, look at me, go. I got them all right. And then it's, test your general mechanical knowledge. You're more specialized. Like they'll show you a picture of an exploded view of a car, like a brake system. And they'll be like, identify the parts. And at the time I was like, I guess I'm not going into the motor pool. But yeah, after you take that, they sort of assign you a general score on your mechanical knowledge, your electrical knowledge, your general knowledge, and I think maybe medical knowledge, but I'm not sure on that one. And from there, you know, this was 1998 and the internet was still like exciting and new. It wasn't ruined yet like it is now. And so I wanted to get into computers. I told my recruiter, I was like, I want to get into computers. He says, well, this is what you do. Put down open electrical when you go in, and that's the best way to get a job in computers. In hindsight, I was not being told the entire truth by the recruiter, which probably isn't a surprise. But when they did give me my list of 8 jobs, you know, I think it's like week 5 of basic training. You get to pick. You order them by which one you want most to least. None of them had anything to do with computers at all. They were all avionics jobs, which is not any. I was not interested in learning about airplanes at the time. There was a communications job, which I put at the top, which is just fixing phone lines. And then there was electrical, which I looked at the description. It's, I was like, oh, this would be actually a very good skill to know when I become a civilian again. And also the most appealing thing to me about that job was that the school was 8 weeks and all the other ones were like 20, 30 weeks long. I thought, well, okay, you know what? 8 weeks sounds just about right. Unbeknownst to me, that was outdated paperwork. When I got to school, it was actually 28 weeks because they had combined 2 career fields into one and they had added a whole bunch of new stuff. So yeah, 28 weeks of tech school at Wichita Falls, Shepherd Air Force Base in Texas.
Okay, okay. I was about to ask where was the training? Because I'm guessing, did you do some sort of basic training boot camp type thing before you went into the education? Yeah,
basic training, Air Force basic trainings at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas, and that's the only basic training base for the U.S. Air Force. And I think that's all it's. The Army's got them all over the place. The Marines have Parris Island and San Diego. Oh, and the Navy's actually, theirs is on Lake Michigan. But yeah, Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio in March. It was lovely, lovely weather. I wish I could have enjoyed it a little more. But yeah, we graduated and they put us all on a bus and we drove to Wichita Falls, which is about a 6.5, maybe 7-hour drive. And it was just through the barren wastelands of Texas, just flat as far as you could see, nothing.
So that was your first unit, is that right? Your first posting?
Yeah, that was my training. That was the 366 training squadron. So that was just, for the 28 weeks of school. My first actual unit was the 786 Civil Engineering Squadron at Ramstein Air Base in Germany, of course.
Oh, okay. So just to go back for people maybe just me, to get my head around it. So it's kind of like lower part of Texas is basic training or boot camp.
Yeah, San Antonio's kind of in the middle of Texas. And Wichita Falls is in the northern part of Texas. It's actually, it's pretty close to Oklahoma. Okay. So, yeah. So not a lot going on.
Do you call it basic training?
Yeah.
Is that what you call it?
The official name is basic military training. And when I was in the process of signing up and I would be with my recruiter, I referred to it as boot camp. He's like, we don't call it boot camp.
Right.
It's basic military training. But then my wife, who joined 2 years later, refers to it as boot camp. So I think it's whatever was convenient at the time, whatever was policy.
Because I know it's Marines are definitely boot camp.
Oh, man. Yeah. All 13 and a half weeks of. Whew, yeah.
So the 28 weeks is your technical aspect. Is that correct?
Yep. That's where we just learned the career.
Okay. And then how long was the basic training? AKA
7 weeks.
7 weeks. All right.
Yeah.
And how did you find that? Was that quite easy for you, or did you struggle in some areas?
I actually really liked basic training. I liked it a lot. I liked the structure of it. I liked that there were very clear goals to hit and surpass every single day. I got through every day. I'd wake up, I'd get to breakfast, and I'd say, just let me get through lunch. And I'd get through lunch, and I'd say, just let me get through dinner. And, dinner, I'd say, let me get to lights out. And so I really liked basic training. I liked, that was probably I like that much more than tech school, because tech school was all that stuff that I had, really taken to heart kind of went out the window, and there's 600 people who are just sick of being there already. I was a little disappointed in that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I can only imagine, because that sounds like a very, very long time to be on one camp for learning purposes.
Yeah. We were at the time, we were the longest school at Shepherd Air Force Base. And that was, they had like B-52 avionics and a lot of other, some of the medical squadrons had long schools, but we were the longest.
Wow. Okay. And then when you get sent away to your first unit, assignment, is that what you folks call it?
Yeah, duty assignment.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you get to choose where that is, or are you told?
It's a similar situation to picking your career. You get, except for you're not constrained by what you told your recruiter, or what your recruiter told you that you wanted. Basically, here's the list, and you put the code in of, and I put, Ramstein, basically anything in Europe, I put down. Anything in Asia, I put down. And then there was, I think the code was 88, which was worldwide. I didn't put any stateside choices. And I actually got my first choice, which was Ramstein Air Base.
Okay. So flying out there, was that your first time away from America, first time abroad? Or
I'd actually been to Europe before. When I was 16, we were invited. My school was very small. There were five of us in my class. So,
wow.
And that's just because the town is so teeny and it's an island. So, and our school had been invited to take a trip, like a learning trip to Europe to learn about the Holocaust. And so we raised money and we went to Germany, the Czech Republic, Denmark. I think that was it. So I'd been to, in the Netherlands, and I'd been to Europe before, but 5 years earlier when I was just a young 16-year-old boy.
So close to coming to the UK, but
so
not quite.
Close.
You could have thrown a stone from the Netherlands,
I know.
And so how did you find your first assignment to Ramstein? And just for a bit of information, I have been to Ramstein for it's a very short period, maybe a week or something, for training. But how did you find it? What was your expectations, I suppose?
It was... At the time, morale in our unit was pretty low, and I think that negatively affected me. The fact that I was only 21 also made me waste my time in Europe, and I regret it constantly, because I could have just gone and done all these great, fun things. And instead, I mostly hung out with the same group of friends in either the barracks or at the E-Club on base, which is the enlisted club. We would just get drunk on base, or we would go into town, and instead of experiencing Germany, experiencing a foreign land to us, we would just go to the Irish pubs because they spoke English.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people do navigate to the Irish pubs across Europe, especially in Germany. So it's not a bad thing. But I have said this before in previous episodes, when someone was sharing their time in Ramstein. It's like a mini America in Germany, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the largest population of Americans outside of the United States of America. And I mean, I say we would go to the Irish pubs, but the other reason was a lot of the German pubs would see Americans. They'd be like, "Nein, schnell." They didn't want anything to do with us because we were the worst. We were so annoying. I mean, we just would drink to just the worst excesses and just be the most obnoxious people. So yeah, I can see why they didn't want us in there. I take that back, except for one time, the local Kaiserslautern football club had won some big game. I don't know if it was like their championship, but every German in that city was so drunk and happy that they didn't care. They invited us in, they hugged us, they were singing their songs. We didn't know what they were singing. We're just like, singing, along with us. That was the one time where they let us into the pub that was no Americans allowed ever. But they didn't care. Everyone was just completely blitzed, so happy their football club had won.
Do you remember that time, or was you quite drunk?
I remember it well because I couldn't believe we were going in there, and I couldn't believe, it was like we don't have that sort of I mean, the sports in the United States are, there's fanatical fans, but we don't have that local level that you have over in Europe and in the UK, where, your local team. I mean, yeah, Boston's my local team, but it's all of New England celebrates Boston. It's not like my town has a football club. So yeah, I remember very well, just like everyone's wearing their scarves and their jerseys and hats and, just painted faces and just joyous revelry. It was amazing.
Oh, I do apologize. I'm going to just, I've got someone trying to call me. Don't know why. It's completely fine. So yeah, I was going to say, you mentioned about America and clubs and stuff like that. One thing I do love when I go to America is the sports bars, because you've got so many different sports on multiple different screens, and you can just watch a bit of that, a bit of this, a bit of the other. We don't have anything like that in
really.
Well, not that I'm aware of, and maybe if we do, they're not everywhere. Whereas I know in America you can go down one street and pick another street and go into a different sports bar. It's not as big as it is in the States.
That's interesting. That's an entrepreneurial opportunity right there.
It is, right? It is. So from Ramstein, do you do a lot of training there, and also do you deploy? Do you head off somewhere in the world other than Germany?
Yeah. Most of what we did, we were civil engineering squadron, was we just did base maintenance. So in the mornings we'd get our job orders. We would go out and we would complete the job orders, and exit light fails to illuminate, so we'd have to go, and very unexciting stuff. Occasionally we'd get to climb the big, tall light poles around the aircraft ramps at 150, 200 foot tall and change out those bulbs.
Wow.
But that was about it for excitement. And in the wintertime, we had extra duty where we would do airfield snow removal. And that was actually secretly the funnest thing that anybody, I think, in the Air Force can do, because we got total control of the airfield at night. And we just would drive trucks back and forth, like drive giant dump trucks in the snow and do tricks and things, because they didn't care anymore. They're like, you have control of the airfield. I'm like, yeah, this is great. Nice. But shortly after I got to Ramstein, my unit went to Tirana, Albania, to build a camp in support of humanitarian relief efforts for the Kosovo conflict. So I went there, we built the camp, and then they said, who wants to stay? And I was like, yeah, me, totally, I want to stay. And so I stuck around. I think we were there for 4 months.
Where was that again?
Pulled up. Tirana, Albania.
Oh, in Albania. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Albania was crazy.
Yeah, go for it. What was that like? Because I've never been, and
I'd never been to Albania, and I don't know what the UK intelligence briefings are like, but at least in my experience with the United States Air Force, the intelligence briefings were usually a little dramatic. Basically, they told us we were going to get shot and killed as soon as we hit the ground, and it was the worst place that America had been since Vietnam, and not to trust anybody, and we were all like freaked out, like and then we get there. And we're, all on high alert and everything. We were there with the French Air Force, and the French Air Force, they were like they were being like the most stereotypically French, just like, c'est la vie, hey, welcome. And, wearing these very, very short shorts that we didn't have. We were very jealous of that. And we started to realize that maybe the intelligence briefing was a little bit overblown. And then we started hiring contractors from Albania to work with us, and they were like the nicest, most genuine human beings, and they were so what's the word I'm looking for? They have a different style of affection.
Really?
Like it's normal if you if you have a real bro relationship, to hold another man's hand when you sit next to him. And so sometimes they would hold my hand and I'd be like, yeah, man, cultural differences. All right. Yeah. But they were so nice. We had a electrician who worked with us. His name was George. And I wish I knew what happened to George, but he spoke a little bit of English. He had been, before Albania had, before communism had fallen, he was a musician. and had kind of been like a famous musician in Albania doing traditional. He would show us pictures like him dressed in traditional Albanian clothes and with like instruments, and he was kind of a big deal. But now he's just an electrician guy. And one day we got a call because there was a branch that was laying on 2 of the high voltage lines, and it was arcing. And I'm like, oh God, what are we gonna do about this? And George, he looked around, he grabbed a dry piece of wood, he climbed a tree and just whack, started hitting it and knocked it off. And our translator, because he only spoke a little English, our translator was there. I was like, you should tell him he shouldn't have done that. And she said, oh, he says, we're Albanian. That's how we do things. So I was like, all right.
So what year was this when you went out to Albania?
That was 1999.
That was.
And we were only there for a few months. Like we built a pretty sizable camp with some hard structures, and then they're just like, you know what? We're not going to be in Albania anymore. And we just left, and we, signed it over to the Albanian Air Force. And as far as I know, it's still there. It's right outside of the Tirana International Airport.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
And your main role out there was to, as just mentioned then, fix any problems that would incur. Yeah.
At first we went because it was just a field on the side of the runway, and then we built a camp with tents, and then a Red Horse unit, which is a sort of specialty Air Force engineering unit, came in, and they built a power distribution system. So we helped them with that. So we just got power going. We got showers, buildings, and then we started building hard structures. And then, then we just left it all behind. And we worked with the French, and I can't remember who else was there. I definitely remember the French because they were very charming, lovely people.
And then you headed back to Ramstein, I'm guessing.
Yep. Back to Ramstein, and just did the old, going from a place that was sunny and a little bit scary to gloomy Ramstein was a bit of a shocker again, but.
And back to the Irish bar.
Back to the Irish bar. Yep.
Welcome back. Yeah, there was. I remember there's an. I don't know if it was Irish bar, but it was a very popular bar when I was based out in a place called Hamel, which is North Germany. And the guy that owned it spoke broken English, but would love having the Brits come in. But would, a mag light, the big mag light. He'd have one of those so that if any of the Brits got carried away, he'd come and sort them out. And his name was Weser, and there was a river that ran through Hamel called Weser, or River Weser. So I always remembered his name. But yeah, he would never hold back, and we wouldn't, stand back and let him do it, because sometimes, you got to be looked after or sorted out, shall we say?
Oh yeah. I know all about it.
Good memories. Oh yeah, so many good memories. And then after that, did you deploy anywhere else, or did you go back to the US? I mean, I don't know, whilst you're stationed in Ramstein, that you get time to go back home. How does that look?
mean, you get 30 days of leave per year when you're in the US military. So, right after I got back from Albania, I had a ton of money because obviously I had no place to spend it. And we got, $3 a day for extra for food or whatever. So I went home for 3 weeks, and then back to Germany. I went and just sort of stayed around. I mean, we took a trip to Amsterdam. Me and my friends, we just drove to Amsterdam one time. They did a tour. Well, it wasn't a tour, but it was a bus to Spain, to the Mediterranean, an 18-hour bus ride, which was not fun, except I didn't know that they serve beer on buses. That made it a little more fun, a little more tolerable. But yeah, in hindsight, I wish I had taken a little bit better advantage of my free trip to Europe. I could have just, oh well.
But sometimes when you're that young, you don't get it.
So dumb.
And so where did you deploy next? Where was the next area on the map?
After Ramstein, I was done with Ramstein. I did not like my unit. And my time came up, and I got to Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico, which is weirdly where a lot of people from Ramstein end up. And there's some way that they balance how your station will, like, you'll go to a really desirable station, which I did at Ramstein, and then you'll go to like a place that nobody wants to go to, which was Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico. But thankfully I ended up meeting my wife there, who was the air traffic controller at the time. So yeah, I went to Holloman Air Force Base. I'd never been to the desert before. It was more of a shock to see New Mexico for me as somebody from the northeast of the United States than it was when I went to Germany, because Germany kind of looks the same. You know, the trees are a little different. The roads are much faster. The signs are blue instead of white for some reason. But like, you know, I got to New Mexico, it might as well have been Mars. It's giant mountains and everything's dusty. And so, yeah, that was also the first time I'd experienced heat since I had been in Texas. So within a week of being at New Mexico, the day that I left Germany, it was 55 degrees Fahrenheit. And then a week later, I was in New Mexico and it was 100 degrees and I was in a formation and I fell out for the first time in my entire career. The heat got to me and I just, and before I hit the ground, they knew that was going to happen. So they had medics, you know, lined up for people to fall out. But man, that was a little bit embarrassing. My first week at my new station.
So you're calling it fall out, making it sound really manly, but you mean fainted.
I fainted. I passed out from the heat. I had heat exhaustion. But, you know, the official term is, he fell out. He fell out. So,
I mean, we joke about it, but it happens, you know, even in the UK when you're on parade for so long. It does happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, so how was that? Did you recover pretty quick, I guess?
Yeah, they put the coldest pack that I've ever felt in my life on my neck, and they feed the water to me, and they're like, hey, you're good. And then, you know, I just sit there and everyone's looking at me. But I mean, it was the only reason I was in the formation because I had just gotten there, and that seems to be, you know, however it is, whoever's there first gets the worst duty, and whoever's been there longest gets out of it. So yeah, standing in a formation for a long time in the heat when I wasn't acclimated yet. And, you know, we couldn't have our sleeves rolled up because we were in formation. So all our sleeves were down, and it was quite warm. But shortly after that, again, because I was new to the unit, there was a project, a little background. The unit that I was with in New Mexico was the 49th Materiel Maintenance Squadron. So it was all of us civil engineers, but we mostly worked with the deployed equipment that either was in development or had just been like we were testing it to make sure that it worked. And so there was a B-2 shelter that they'd commissioned from some shady contractor. The idea was that it would be able to be packed in 6 pallets and, you know, moved on one C-130 to any location in the world. That all fell completely by the wayside once we got there. But that was supposed to be a 6-week assignment in Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, which is a lovely little, great fishing. I'll say there's a lot of places to go fishing in Missouri. That turned into a 9-month project because it was very crooked. The contractor I don't think he was really on the level, and it failed all the time. We had one catastrophic failure, which required it to completely be redesigned, where the way that the door rose up was not well thought out, and it collapsed while we were in it. And this held a B-2 bomber.
Wow. This
was a large shelter covered in, you know, canvas, not real canvas, but yeah, 9 months. And then one day our chief master sergeant, I wish I could remember his name because he was so awesome. He just like showed up. He's like, oh, by the way, you've gone over the amount of days that you can be deployed in a year. So you have to come home. I was like, sweet. That's awesome. They don't do that anymore.
Right.
And then about 3 months later, 9/11 happened. They're like, oh, you remember that thing where you couldn't be gone for 252 days in a year? Well, that's gone out by the wayside now. So,
yeah, and I was just about to ask what time frame. So it sounds like did you arrive back to the US in 2000? Is that
I came back in 2000, and I was gonna ride out the rest of my enlistment in New Mexico.
Okay.
uneventfully, expecting nothing really exciting to happen because it was 2000. Nothing really exciting was happening. 2001. Yeah, I was at a pallet stacking training class when they're like, yeah, we're in ThreatCon Delta. Everybody go back, which is the highest, like ThreatCon level that they put on a base, which I'd never seen before till then. So yeah, then it was sitting around. We watched it all on our TV in our office, or not our office, our shop rather. And just like, well, okay, this is crazy now. And then I think like 3 weeks later, I was on a plane to Thumrate, Oman, or Tumrate. I'm not exactly sure how you properly pronounce it.